Welcome to the first edition of the Big and Small podcast. I'm Jason Shields, and I'm big.
And I'm Marit Gabrielsen, and I'm small.
So welcome. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about why we want to do a podcast and who we are, and sharing about where we've been and why you should listen to us. Right, Marit? Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of holes I find in society in relationship to people not understanding how to get what they want, and I would like to share because I've got pretty much everything that I've wanted. I'm very fulfilled in my life, and that's not the case for most people. And there's some very small technical things they can do to make their lives way better. And one of the things that I've noticed about you as a person, Marit, is that you're so efficient at improving all the time. You know, we've been working together, and I've never seen anybody who takes on a new role in an office or in a business and constantly fills up that place that they're in and makes it better and pushes the boundaries to take more responsibility. That's something that you've constantly done. And, you know, it's like watching watching a win-win-win-win highlight reel. You know,
It doesn't always feel like that, but
well, that's
Yeah.
the behind the scenes is when you're constantly improving, you're never accepting the celebration of, okay, I've arrived, right? So most people are constantly moving forward, which is also a thing. So, you know, as we're doing our podcast series, we're going to start focusing on how to enjoy all the success you're getting as you're becoming that person that you want to be, right? So right now it's all about, you know, the mechanics of success, you know, the inside and the internal process and the outside, you know. So let's introduce ourselves a little bit. Could you please give me a little bit of a rundown on your life so I can? Yeah.
well, I'm 30. I just turned 30.
Uh-huh.
I would say I had a pretty normal life. I grew up in Voss, Norway. It's a busy, tiny town where skiing is the big thing. I never done it much, but
You have skis, of
I
course.
have skis, of
and
course.
you have skied,
but I don't do skiing.
Yeah, that's
I don't
like
go cross country skiing.
that Norwegian thing. I don't do it means she doesn't have a gold medal in the Olympics.
Oh well, yeah, far from it.
Okay.
But now I grew up here. I met my now husband when I was 15 in a YMCA group.
Early romance.
Early romance, stuck together.
Nice.
I think what was special for us and for me in the beginning is that I've always been very, very clear and always been very determined. My mom and dad called me Sergeant when I was like 2.
Wow.
They started calling me Sergeant. In Norway, you have to go. Now everyone has to kind of go through a process of going into the army, and you get elected or not. When I was 18, it wasn't like that. You could go in if you wanted as a girl, and men had to apply for it.
Just as one thing, I don't want to interrupt, but like your rank in the military is what?
Second lieutenant.
Which is over sergeant, which means you were already busting through those expectations here from when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
exactly,
anyway,
yeah.
so I didn't know what I turned. To go back a little bit, I actually met you as well when I was 15.
Yes.
I had a bag that was after a school trip with a backpack and tents and stuff. It was just wrecked. And I met you when I was 15 and as a chiropractor. And you helped me adjust my back, and I started to work out and enjoy that part of it. So I got just go back to it because I didn't get the army letter if you wanted to go in. I said, oh, no. Never in a million years. I'm never doing the army. Like, you're kidding me? And then I turned 18. I was done with high school. Didn't know what to study. So I loved training. So I started to become a PT.
Mm-hmm.
I did that, and I was back and forth, and I actually sent you a couple of messages because I was thinking about studying chiropractic. But because of you had to do math and physics and chemistry, which I didn't have from my high school, I figured I'm not that engaged in it. I don't want it that much. So I talked to you about physical therapist. And then you said, hell no. I said, yeah, but I can work with athletes. And you said, no, you won't.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, I knew how sporty you were. And there's something called the romantic illusion that people have about things and around things, right? You know, and the romantic illusion about being a physical therapist is that, oh, my day is going to be filled with top level athletes and it's going to be amazing. And almost 95% of all physical therapists spend their whole day rubbing old people's butts. It's like, and all this, no disrespect.
No, it's a necessary job, but
God bless them, the angels that do it,
yes.
but it's just not what you think it is. So, that's why, being a chiropractor,
you kind of
much more likely.
Yeah, and what you did for me was kind of, I know this is what you think it will look, this is how it will look.
Yeah.
And if you would enjoy what it will look like, do you go for it? But if that's not what you aim for,
right,
just know that that's 95% that you will end up there, and not what you hope and dream that you will end up with.
Exactly.
And I wasn't kind of that engaged in it, so I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. And I was actually walking to training with my then boyfriend, Eirik, which is, again, my husband.
Yes.
And I asked him, so can you take leadership education or something in the Norwegian army? And he said, of course you can. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that. So I just went right for it. I should have looked into it a little bit more to understand what it actually meant, what I actually had to do, what it would mean for me in the long run. Then I wouldn't have done it, most likely.
Yeah.
But so in one way, happy I didn't. I should have been more prepared. I got in. I ended up in the National Guard as the only girl with 20-something guys.
Well, the National Guard, meaning in America, the National Guard is a different branch of the military.
Okay, yeah,
so you're talking about the army.
Yeah,
right?
I was in the army,
Yeah.
and I took the what do you call it? You have to in Norway you have to study to become a sergeant.
Yes.
It's
basically
a
school.
Yeah, it's a school. It's 2-year school where
Yeah.
you learn all the military stuff with shooting and crawling on the ground and all that.
Yeah, you go through basic training, and then you go through actually the education of being a leader in the army, right?
Yeah, and then you have 1 year of internship
Right.
after that, and then you get you're done, and you can continue to grow and stuff. So I did that for 2 years. The first year I was the only girl, and the second year I was working. It cost a lot more than I thought it did right there and then, which I think we'll come back to a couple of times during these podcasts. But a very, I don't want to say good experience, a very necessary experience.
Yeah, interesting.
Very interesting, a very, I learned a lot from it.
Right, and when you say, like you and I, we don't like to talk about good or bad. We like to talk about total experiences, right?
It was a total experience.
Exactly, yeah.
And again, I didn't understand it when I was in it.
Right.
But as we have been reflecting a lot of the last 3 years, I have seen a lot more what it actually meant and what it actually did to me.
Yeah.
In good and bad.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to become one of the teachers, actually, or instructors at the military academy. That was my goal. So I went to Trondheim in Norway to study. And then after 9 months, they headhunted me back because they had the position that I wanted was open. Excellent. And they asked me, do you want it? They called me on Sunday. And I all of a sudden was in an interview. I'm like, in the middle of it, I understood, oh shit, I'm actually having an interview. I need to do this a little bit better because I was way too relaxed. I was just like chatting along. I was like, oh shit, it's actually a job interview. And I didn't understand that.
Wow.
I got the job. I studied there I went there after a month, I think. And then I was on the, where the new, the people that they want to go to the military academy, I have to go like a session of 2 weeks where you test them and stuff. And I was down there in working, and Eirik calls me, and he had just failed all his exams. And I just said, okay, listen, you need to go to England now. You've been talking about becoming a chiropractor for now 5 years, 6 years. Go.
Exactly. So he was studying engineering, basically, right?
in Trondheim at that point, and I was living in much more further down, so I was going back and forth from the military base to Trondheim. He was studying in Trondheim, but again, he failed all his exams. Yeah,
and that comes when people aren't really on board with what they're doing. It's not really their highest goals and ambition. They're just like snap, right?
Yeah. So he failed. I just said, okay, listen, you talked about this for 5 years. If I have to go from this military base to Trondheim or this military base to to England, Bournemouth, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's travel no matter what. So he applied, he got in, went there for 5 years, and I was in the military base. But after a while, I loved the job. I loved it. I loved the job from 7 to 6 at night. I loved it. But the issue was that when I was done, I didn't have any social network. I lived in a itsy-bitsy tiny place, and I got sick from it. I see again when I look back at it. So after doing that for 1.5 years, I moved back to my hometown, or Bergen, which is the town close to my hometown, and I went into the military work there with recruiting people. And then I met you again, which was the fun thing. You introduced me to the wonderful martial art of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. So after a year in Bergen, I decided to, I'm done.
Yeah.
I've done everything I wanted to do. I had a 10-year plan for the military. I did it in 3.5.
That's very Marit-ish. That's very like you. It's like it's 10-year plan, 3 years done. Yeah. Okay.
So I was done with that, and I felt done with it. I have accomplished everything I wanted to do. Was given all the opportunities that I wanted. I did all of them. I was very happy and satisfied, and I was like, it's time to go home.
Yeah.
So I moved home to Voss. Lucky for me, it opened a position in your clinic as well. So we started having a very interesting relationship where you were my chiropractor, you were my coach, and we evolved into my mentor. And then we were running the clinic, and then we became best friends.
Yes.
And we started also then through jiu-jitsu working, because jiu-jitsu is a martial arts. And again, I hate martial arts. I was the one that would never in a million years start martial arts, because why would you fight someone? And I don't like getting kicked. I don't like getting smashed in the face.
Yeah, from the military background, why would you fight them? Just shoot them.
Shoot them. Yeah, but I didn't like the military either, and I did that. So
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense in that way. And then I just fell in love with this sport. It's grappling. You don't get hit, but you learn to control. You learn to break joints. You learn to choke people out. I just fell totally in love with it, and we started thinking, okay, let's try to go for the world championship.
Yeah.
Which we are still trying to accomplish, because we haven't gotten quite there yet, but we are working on it.
Yeah. We'll get
because
there.
what the interesting part of it was the truth that all of those experiences, we found out, okay, I have the body, I have the techniques,
and the drive,
but the mental, emotional part of it, I don't have yet. And for the last 3 years, we've been working on that.
Yeah.
And that has been a very interesting, very total experience.
Yes.
And that is also why we came back to this podcast, because through all of the mental, emotional work we've been doing, we kind of have seen that it's a lot of simple stuff everyone can do to make their life 10 times better.
Yeah. So
and just have to say that, because you don't have to do everything, but you can do one thing. If you can have one thing that makes your life a little bit better, like you say, like 1% in strength increase doesn't change that much, but if you change your perspective 1%, everything changes.
Exactly. That's right.
And we'll be coming back to that a lot. So I can say that this, when we're having a lot of conversations around it, and we got a lot of feedback actually from people, this is very interesting. So what we figure out to do is that, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
So we take in our coffee cup from the Vangen Cafe.
Yeah.
It's a local cafe here in Voss, from the break room, from the lunchroom, and down to a podcast studio. And we're doing the exact same thing as we would do with no matter what.
Yeah, so we're basically sharing a process, right?
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting, because I grew up and did the military and all of that, and then I didn't start any process in focused self-development until 3 years ago.
Right.
Well, you, on the other hand, you started when you were 4.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's very interesting, because you got into meditation and working on yourself when you were 4, right?
Yeah, that's when it started, basically. My father came home from Vietnam with severe post-traumatic stress disorder. And in those days, they didn't really have a good word for that. And there were no treatments for military people. So like very many others that came home from Vietnam, they self-medicated for anxiety and trauma through alcohol and drugs. And though he was one of the most magnificent people that my mother had ever met, he was completely destroyed as a person when he came back. And he unfortunately fell into the alcohol and drugs category, and my mom couldn't have me around that as a child. It scared me. Of course, I was a little kid, and you see this giant man, passing out because of alcohol abuse, which is just not okay, and any healthy mother will not stand for that. So she pulled us, me and her. She came and woke me up in the middle of the night and said, "Okay, Jason, now I need you to be an adult." And I'm like, "An adult? What's that?" I was like, "What's an adult?"
Okay, let's play that game.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm adult now.
I know, I'm an adult, 5 years old. And she's like, we're gonna have to leave now, and I need you to be a grown up here now. Yeah, I need you to. And that was a lot to put on a 5-year-old's shoulders. Actually, I'm sorry, 4 years old. I was 4 years old. I think I just turned 4 at that point. Something else happened when I was 5. I'll get back to that. So she pulled me out of bed, and we got in the car and left and never turned back. My mother, of course, had given my father chances to change, but you realize you got to a critical point and they're not able to change, and you have to step out. And that's what she did for me, not for her. I think if it had just been her, she probably would have tried to fight through it and suffered. But you will do often more for other people than you'll do for yourself, and especially for your children. So she then, of course, had been living with a person who was traumatized and needed to find some way of working that out for herself. So she went through a process of going to different churches and looking for different techniques for meditation and therapy and all of that. But it was the 60s and 70s, right? I was born in 71, so it's like we're talking about 75 now, 1975. And people were still in that kind of phase of open-minded hippie living in a way. So there was actually a large movement of self-development, meditation, and exploring yourself and looking for something more. So it was actually a good time for my mother to be looking for this kind of stuff. So I remember visiting some church, or rather some church community, and of course I'm tiny, I'm 4 years old, and I remember pointing at the guy in the picture, and I said, "Who's that angry man?" And I guess it was the leader of the church or whatever. And then of course we are not accepted into that community. Who's that angry man, right? So my mother finally got into Silva mind control, and she got into transcendental meditation. And that's where I got a walking mantra when I was 4 years old, which all of these techniques are extremely effective, and we'll talk about them over time, But
you've been working on self-development from that on. You never stopped. Kind of just, you done it all. Like you done the not say a word for 2 weeks and...
Yeah, that's right. I've gone through Buddhism and Hinduism and all this. Sounds like, oh, I did everything, but no, I have actually.
I have seen it. You have done it. You have looked at a wall.
Yeah.
For one day, every week for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
It's very incredible.
Yeah.
So it's very nice for me because I get the shortcut.
That's what I want to give you, and of course everybody who's listening, I'd like to give you the insights of these processes so that you don't have to spend the time doing them. Get the shortcut, because yes, I did learn a lot being in a place where I'm not speaking in a community of people for 2 weeks, and I've also again looked at a wall or just focused on my breathing for days and days and days, literally not doing anything but just registering that my breath is in and my breath is out for days and days and days and days. And you're asking, well, why? That's so stupid, such a bad use of your time. But sometimes in order to separate the thing from the things that you project on it, you need to bring yourself back to what's basic. The stories we tell, the projections we have, and the ideas and the romantic illusions we have around things disappear when you can bring yourself back to the actual mechanics of the universe and the mechanics of your body. The body's very, very useful for clearing out the mind. Everybody's like, oh, I wish I had a calm, quiet mind. If you'd like that, then do those kind of meditations. We can, of course, teach you how to do that without sitting and looking at a wall for days and days and days. But the situation is that that's the traditional method, the path for doing that, and it works. The problem is that most people don't want that quiet mind that much because they're very much entertained by their inner dialogue. They think that their personality and their ego and their thinking process is them. And we'll get back to how that's not the case. But the point is that, you know, most people feel totally alone in the world if they're not talking to themselves in the head. I never talk to myself. I literally don't have that dialogue
I figure
anymore.
when I talk to myself, it's not often good stuff that comes up. It's very often unkind.
Yeah, very, very much so.
And often not very nuanced and very fact-based. It's mostly worked on projections and feelings. But coming back to, because your mom met a nice guy.
Absolutely.
That's called Tom Poole.
Yeah, Tom Poole. And he's my dad. He adopted me when I was after I won the world championship in jiu-jitsu.
At age 40.
Yeah, I think I was 45.
I was
47.
47.
Yeah, I was 47.
That's when I figured, this is a good guy.
Yeah, I guess finally, yeah, I was deemed worthy. But he came into our lives when I was 8 years old. And
amazing guy.
Yeah, he's an
amazing guy.
Absolutely fantastic human being. And, you know, people don't know this, but he was headhunted by NASA when he was a young man. And he's a genius, literally a genius. His IQ is like 168 or something like that. He's like the 1% of the smartest people in Mensa, which means Mensa is like the people that have IQs over 135, I think. And he's like the smartest 1% of those people. So it's like he's an exceptional human being. And he's also the son of the famous War Daddy. So if you ever watch the movie Fury, War Daddy is the lead role played by Brad Pitt. Well, that's based on my grandfather, Lafayette Green Poole, LG Poole. So if you look him up on Wikipedia, he will blow your mind. He's the most decorated tank commander in the U.S. history. In fact, his accomplishments there are unbelievable. And we'll talk about those things later, but it's shocking. And a lot of the effectiveness training and thinking that I have comes from Tom and War Daddy. So being able to bring those techniques and thought patterns to my life has really given me a lot of success. And we'll be sharing those, of course, you know. Tom Poole, he was a kind, intelligent, wonderful man who supported my mom and me through all of our processes and was also very much into self-development. You know, if you are an intelligent human being, you realize that you're at least 50% of all the situations you're in, right? So whether it's good or bad, you know, if you look at yourself and you improve yourself and you become a more efficient human being, then everything you do is more efficient. You're more successful everywhere. So he understood quite early that he needed to work on himself as well. Because who gets through their childhood without something good? And who gets through their childhood with something bad? I mean, everybody has good and bad things, right? So you need to work with those things. And we also are incomplete. We're learning to be us and to express ourselves, right? So he realized that self-development, and he worked with Jose Silva, who actually founded Silva Mind Control and gave lectures and was teaching that. And that's how my mom met him. I think she went to him as a chiropractor and then realized that he was doing Silva Mind Control, which is an excellent self-hypnosis, self-exploration technique. And asked him if it would be okay if we showed up. And if, again, she's always thinking about me, and asked him if I could be there. Could I possibly learn these techniques? And he said, absolutely, let's do it. So I went on a course in Silva Mind Control as an eight-year-old, I believe. And my mom and he fell in love, and the rest is history.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you always have been. I think that's one of the things we're similar with is that you always been driving and going for stuff.
Yes.
Because you did basketball and volleyball and you almost made the Olympic team, but because of shoulder injury you couldn't proceed that.
Correct.
And then you went to chiropractic school, but before that you took a bachelor in biology, right?
That's right. I was going to become a biologist because I wanted to be in the mountains and in the woods and out in the Arctic with the wolves, Marit. That's what I was going to do.
That's the rose and hearts and what you wish it for it to be. I don't think that's what you do.
Yeah, that's exactly. As a biologist, especially with a bachelor's degree, man, you don't get anywhere. People do not respect that in the workforce. Basically, the idea that I had was that I was going to live in nature and make wildlife documentaries, and that was a romantic illusion.
Very much so. Yes.
So after I spent the summer basically crunching numbers for a PhD student because I, weirdly enough, understand statistics quite well, I realized that this sucks.
Yeah.
And that I would rather be working with human beings instead of working with numbers in a laboratory somewhere. So then I decided to ask my advisor, what should I do with my life? You know, I said, you're a medical doctor, aren't you? And he said, yes. I said, well, maybe I should become a medical doctor. He's like, oh man, don't do that. I said, well, why not? And he said, because it's too hard. It's dirty. It's stressful. It's everybody's
I think that it must be I was thinking to be a general medical doctor, like not a specialist, but a general medical doctor, must be the worst profession ever. And I do not envy that job at all. I'm so grateful for people having it.
Yes.
But if you think about it, like they don't know what's going to come in the door.
No.
And then for some, it's an illusion, but then they kind of need to know everything.
Yeah, they need to be the all-knowing oracle of Delphi. You know, they have to take psychiatric patients, and people have weird diseases and parasites, and nobody forgives mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes.
And it's horrible. A human being can't know everything. Like the general medical doctor should actually be the one that should understand what kind of specialist just this one needs to see, and this one needs to see, and this one needs to see, because it must be horrible.
Yeah,
and I understand how they get overworked. I do not envy that job at all. I'm so grateful for people having it, but I'm very grateful for that I'm not having it.
Exactly, and that's what he said. He said that he was first a general practitioner, and then he wanted to specialize because he figured it would be better then. And then he became a rheumatologist, which is basically talking about joints and rheumatic diseases and autoimmune diseases that affect the musculoskeletal system. And then he went further into geriatrics, which is basically medicine that has to do with aging, because he all the time was thinking, well, maybe I can help people who are dying already. It's like, and he just said that it's just chaos, it's suffering, and people are getting sick, and the model that medicine has these days, we're improving, but it's still horrible. Mayo Clinic, for example, did research, and they found out that medical doctors put the right diagnosis on the patient less than 50% of the time. And, everybody looks at medicine as an icon of science, but a normal, according to the British Journal of Medicine, an average hospital only has 16% of their procedures based in science, evidence-based, which it's horrific.
It's the other than experience-based then.
Yeah, it's experience-based, and it's culturally based, and it's just what we do because it's always been done that way. And I just want to repeat that number again, guys. That's 16%, not 60%, 16%. Like 16% of what they do at a hospital is evidence-based, and that's because the science is constantly changing and developing. But we really can't do a lot of research where it's necessary because it takes so much time and it's so expensive. So we're relying in the medical field on the pharmaceutical industry, who is actually making money off of selling drugs, to do the research on the drugs, which is very difficult. So he was just like, it's a very difficult business. It's very, very difficult to help people. And he said, don't you have a chiropractor in the family? And I said, well, that's exactly it. My dad's a chiropractor, so I don't want, Tom Poole, who's a chiropractor, he gave up working for NASA to become a chiropractor. And that's a great story. We'll have him on the podcast sometime. And he said, yeah, but that's not the thing for you. And I said, well, we have one. I'd like to develop our family business or concept in a different way.
You don't want to become your dad, is what you're saying.
Well, basically, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to become my dad. Yeah, I was young and fresh, and now I would love to be like him.
I would do better.
Yes, exactly.
I would become more.
Yeah, I would become more, do better, take it where he left it and grow, whatever. Yeah, You're right. You got me. You busted.
Busted. We tell the truth.
Yeah, I'm telling the truth. We tell the truth. That's the thing. Truth. So that's the major issue here, is to choose a path. And I was offered, he said, if you want to become a medical doctor, I will get you into Johns Hopkins. I'll get you a free ride because you have great grades. We can do that. And in fact, I have access to a scholarship there. So we'll do that for you if you'd like. But I recommend that you do something else. And I went back and forth. Should I become a PhD in biology? Should I, but I really wanted to work with people. And then chiropractic did actually come around. And I worked with a medical doctor for a while, and I worked in a clinic with a chiropractor as receptionist, actually, just to see what kind of patients come in. And oh my gosh, it was night and day. It's so positive being a chiropractor, and the kind of results and the kind of satisfaction and the happiness people feel when they are actually getting that result is so much bigger as a chiropractor. And the kind of patients, as a chiropractor, you really don't deal with super, super duper sick people. You don't deal with terminal people that often, so.
It can happen, but it's not the normal patient walking in. And
that's exactly right.
You can I think that was why, one of the reasons why you said, if you're going to do anything, physical therapist, chiropractor, you do chiropractic, because you can help people lift their grandkids again.
Yeah.
You can see that development much more, because you're not doing the recovery, but you're helping them. Like a physical therapist has to do a lot with recovery after operations and stuff, and surgery. But for a chiropractor, you are helping people with acute back pains or wear and tear over time, and you can help them get some of their life back in one way, and you can see that happening for them.
That's exactly right. You see a progress, you see a progression, and you see functional changes that mean so much. When a lady comes in and says, "I can lift my grandkids again," what
that's a big win for you.
It's a super win. That's why.
And a big win for them, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. You're improving people's quality of life. So, I asked my dad then, is it okay? Do you think I would be a good chiropractor? You think it's okay? And he said, can you look at every person as your mother, father, brother, grandmother, And I said, I think I can. He said, then it's right for you. So do it, So I went to chiropractic school and have never looked back. I love my work. I love touching people's lives through chiropractic. And
I guess what Tom meant with that, like if you can see them as your mother and sister and brother, is that can you give every patient that care that you would give your mother and your sister and your grandma?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. You have to approach them as if they were your grandma. It's like, how would you give the same care? Yeah. How would you care for a person who you love that much, and what choices would you make for them, right? And another thing that he told me, I thought that was really interesting, because you exhibit this amazing quality, Marit. It's that he said that also you have to realize that some people evolve in their practice 1 year, and then they just repeat that year over and over, and they never get better. And some people have 20 years of experience, which is they grow every single year that they're in their job, in their work. And he said that, you need to check and recheck. You need to grow with your practice. You need to practice to get better every year. Just like you do. You constantly fill up your spot where you are. You constantly push the borders of responsibility and take on more responsibility. You're growing constantly. I've never met a person who grows as voraciously and as efficiently as you do.
You're not fast enough.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like, being with people that have that focus and understand that that's what life's about. It's about getting more efficient and better at what you're doing so you can do more and have looked back and think, I did that. I'm happy. I'm very proud of myself in that situation.
And that's kind of one of my ultimate higher self goals and ambitions is to, I want to look back and say, I did it.
Yeah.
And I would like to have done everything.
Yeah, that's it.
So, but then you study chiropractic and you build this beautiful clinic in Voss. And actually you and your wife, Siv, was the first chiropractic office in Voss.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he'd never been a chiropractor here before.
That's right. That's never been a chiropractor that lived here and worked here. So it was pretty cool. The same thing with jiu-jitsu. There was never a jiu-jitsu club here. And now we have, world champions, and we have European champions, and we have all kinds of athletes that have to come out of that. And that, I think it's about daring to take the step forward and establish yourself someplace and just make it work for you. Steve and I came here and settled down and started the practice, and don't regret one day. Don't regret one early morning. At one point, before we had systems, we got popular quite quickly, and we didn't really have the logistics to deal with that. Didn't have secretaries and didn't have, a physical plant that was big enough, a clinic that was big enough to deal with the patient load. And I remember walking out into the waiting room. I'd started the day at 5:15 in the morning with my first patient. And I think it was about 9:30 at night. And I hadn't even had lunch that day, and I look, and there's like 16 people sitting on the floor and in chairs waiting to get in to get adjusted. And then I'm
like the early 90s? Oh,
yeah,
mid 90s.
Mid 90s.
Yeah.
And then I had to go to the bathroom. Because I hadn't left basically my office the whole day, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I kind of waded through the people, and I ran down the hall, and I went to the bathroom, because at that time we didn't even have a bathroom. It was just like 2 rooms and a small waiting room that Steve and I had. And she'd gone home a long time ago. I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and I realized that the physical therapist who owned the building also had a gallery next door, and they had pictures along the walls, and the patients had taken down the pictures and used the nails on the walls as coat hangers, basically hanging up their coats. So there was like 11 coats like hanging on the wall down towards the bathroom. And I realized, you know what? I need a bigger office. This is crazy. This is so crazy. So I went back in and I treated patients, and they were so happy, and I was so happy to be there. But I was like, we could have been in Uganda, or we could have been in someplace,
that wasn't good enough.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough.
You had to. Yeah. It wasn't giving the service that the patients deserved.
Exactly.
Basically, like you shouldn't have to sit on the floor.
Yeah, that's exactly
right. And
use
picture nails to hang your coat on.
Hang your coats. No. Exactly. So I made basically the demand, create the next step. I filled up my spot, which is again the thing that you're doing constantly. You fill up your present place in your life, and then you will naturally take the next step. You don't always have to worry about what the next step is, because the next step will become obvious. I needed a bigger office, right? And I also, at one point, my mom visited. I was waking up at just after 4 a.m. and getting some breakfast and a big cup of tea, and I would drive down to the office and see my first patient at 5:15 a.m, work until 10 at night. She was there 3 weeks, and I think I spent a grand total of 7 hours with her in 3 weeks.
And she was at that time, of course, yes, coming from the US. She wasn't living next door. You were in Norway. You moved back with Siv here, because she's also from Voss, Norway.
Yes.
And then they lived in Texas or Iowa or something.
Yeah, I think at that time they were in New Mexico. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, exactly. And then it was amazing.
Your mom deserved better than that.
My mom deserved way better than that. But she said, Jason, I haven't seen you more than 7 hours in 3 weeks, and you're fat. And I'm like, what? Say what? Mom, you're supposed to tell me I need to eat more. Come on. I'm like, seriously? And she's like, you got to do something about this. Your life has to change, right? And I bring that up just to talk about the passion and the dedication that's needed to really make things happen. If you're going to, be the first of something, you need to really decide that this is my thing. You need to own it, and I really felt like I owned it, and I got the result that I wanted. I got more of a result than I could have imagined, and more fulfillment than I could have imagined, and I now get to share my life with you, which you're my best friend, my favorite person. Right. So, I really got such a gift from all the hard work. So like you're saying, you want to look back and say, I did that.
Yeah. But I think what's one of the very interesting things that's different from us, because in all of that time, you still did all the self-development and focused the self-development. You guys went to courses, you took breaks, you meditated, you all also did that all the time. So it never stopped, that process of becoming more and more integrated and looking at the mind and the spirit and the heart and the body. That never stopped. But in the process of becoming the best chiropractor and establishing that, you kind of forgot the body part of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because you just have so much energy that you still have.
Yes.
And you just have 24 hours a day. And of course, so, and you guys never stopped. So you've been now doing this for 50 years.
That's it.
Or not 50, because you started when you were 4. So it's going to be 46 years.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And that's the thing, that the development piece, you get to a certain point when you've done enough meditation and you've done enough self-exploration that your outward expression becomes your meditation. I no longer have to meditate to have a meditative mindset, meditative point of view on my life, because everything is a meditation now. And that's really what you want. So the evolution, the self-evolution now happens for every step and every breath and every adjustment and every meal and every laugh and every tear. And, it's all in there.
It's a more total life.
It's total. Exactly. It's not, okay, I'm going to live and then I'm going to sit down. It's like, people go to church on Sunday to get forgiveness for what they did on Saturday night, right? It's not that life. And then they get out, finished with their church, and then they go back to their normal life on Monday, and then nothing's changed. But that's the materialistic version of spirituality, where you kind of are trying to reset yourself, and which is necessary for a period, but you should always have that consciousness that you're now becoming that meditation. You're becoming a person who can constantly reset, integrate, and move forward, and that everything you do is a part of that process.
And we've talked a lot about the state that my goal is that the state I find in meditation shouldn't just be in my meditation. Right. To say I have a meditation room,
yes,
which I want to have at one point. The state you get in the meditation room should move with you outside the meditation room.
That's right.
But what often happens when I look at people is that, they do the meditation and they find something, and then they go out from that room, and then bam, life happens. The kids are screaming, or the car is not working, and they lose themselves into something.
Yes.
And then they have to go back to the meditation room to find themselves again.
Exactly.
And of course, that's a good way to kind of reset yourself, but it would be much more efficient and pleasant if you could just reset yourself after 5 seconds or 1 second or straight away, and not having to reset.
Exactly. And accepting that moment for the flow that it is, and that everything is perfect in that moment for you, and that's a lot of philosophical talk we'll get back to, because it's very, very important for efficient action. People are like, oh, I want to become enlightened, or I want to move towards something bigger. Yeah, but first you have to become somebody so you can become nobody. First you have to figure out who you are, and that usually happens in your teens and 20s. And then you have to figure out what you can do, which is your 30s, and then as you're moving through that process, you'll start getting glimpses of something bigger and something more. And that's what we're going to be talking about a lot, as we get our special guests in and we talk about processes.
I think one of the most interesting thing is that, again, meditation was one of the things I was never going to do.
Yeah, right.
And I'm doing that as well. So everything I've said, I'm never doing it. It's stupid. That's not for me. It's what I've dedicated myself to. So first I dedicated myself to the army. Then I dedicated myself to, first it was training, actually, because I was not that fit when I was 13, 14, 15. I was not at all. And then I started lifting, and I loved that. I went all in that, and then it was the army. And then it was martial arts in form of jiu-jitsu. And now it's meditation. So
yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool, right? But that's actually, you're an extremely powerful human being. You're an extremely powerful personality. You are the kind of person who can make everything happen. And weirdly enough, power comes from polarity. You think about electricity, there's a positive and negative pole to create that. And it's like, I am like this, but then you do something else. I hate violence, but then you're in the military, oh, why fight people? I don't fight. And then you're martial arts, right? But that polarity, that's exactly what has that essence of power that you are. Everybody understands when they hang out with you that you're a powerful person. And the energy that you have comes from that. And I don't want to call it it's not a conflict. It's a totality is what it is, because you're expressing two ends of a spectrum. And it's in that contrast that you get that energy. And, I asked you, one time, so what do you want? What do you really want? And you said you want to be free and you want to have the power to make great change in the world and help people. And I'm like, that's the person I want to hang out with.
I think also, and I want everything.
Yeah, that also.
But everything is total.
Yeah, that's it.
Because that's the thing when I say it, people often go, so you want a luxury car and a nice house and a jet plane? No. I want everything. I want a total experience. I have gone through a lot and I will go through a lot, and that's kind of a part of life and it's part of everything.
Yes.
And I think if I just focus on everything has to be good, it won't be good, because then I have to deal with a lot of suffering around it.
Yes.
But that is one of the reasons why it's very interesting to talk to you, because again, I started my at least focused in a process 3 years ago, and you started 46 years ago.
Yes, yeah, right.
Which gives totally different perspectives.
Yeah.
You also a man and I'm a woman, and with 20 years between us in age.
Yes.
It also gives quite interesting perspectives.
Absolutely, because the issues, like the social issues and the societal issues that I grew up with, are different than what they are today. I mean, you have such a handle on, not just women's issues, but like society issues that I, in a way, haven't necessarily involved myself with, because I'm a little older. And at the same time, I've had a different focus. I'm in a different phase of my life. So I think that having, again, that contrast, you're very powerful in that way, that you create that contrast. We have two people on two different sides of a spectrum. We're so synced, but we're also very different. And I think that's going to be very interesting for people to listen to.
And I think but one of the things that I think has given me the most is because you have done all the work. And I get the shortcut. And that doesn't mean that I question you all the time.
Yes, you do.
I question you all the time. I ask,
Yeah.
It's not like that. Why and how can you prove it? So why is it like that? But
show me.
Show me. I don't.
Yeah.
I trust you and I believe in you and I know you're telling me the truth. But show me.
Yeah, that's it.
But that had given me a lot of a free ride in that way that I can take the shortcut, and does not mean cheating. It just means that I can walk a straight line instead of going 10 kilometers to the right when I could have taken a straight line.
And you have this powerful vulnerability. And what I mean by that is that you know and you accept the fact that things won't be easy. And if you want it fast, it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder. It's going to be rougher. It's going to be, you dare to be vulnerable in that way that you're like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
We have done that with every major things.
Yes.
Because I remember I lost, I started jiu-jitsu. I had what it took as, again, physically, technique-wise. Mm-hmm. And I won bronze after 3 months in Europeans. I won the bronze the year after. I got my blue belt. I did okay the first competition. I was going to European snow gi. Then that's when you fight in kind of spats and slippery clothes, and you don't have grips in clothing. You have to use hand grips.
Yeah.
And I was more than good enough to win.
Big time.
Then I lost in the semifinals, and I got a bronze. But I was so disappointed because I just had lost myself totally. And I was furious, and I was so angry, and I was devastated. And I know we sat down and was like, let's do this. It's enough. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Yes.
I'm ready. And then we worked on that for quite a while. And then we got further because I realized it was more than just the head.
Exactly.
The head is not everything, because we were doing kind of look at facts and be nuanced. And we're going to come back to all of this later, but in different podcasts. But it's something more. And you were kind of giving me hints that, emotions. We have anger and happiness, and they're called emotions.
Yes.
Like, nope. No. Again, this is from the army. We figure out.
Exactly.
Nope, I don't have. Nope, not emotional at all. No, can't be emotional. Weakness, red alarms and beeping, and no. No emotion. No, 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 no. And then we sat down. This was last April, right after COVID happened. And I sat down. I think I have an emotional problem. And you said, no, not a problem, but we have to figure this out. And I said, yes, let's do it.
Yes, it's your superpower. It's like you. I never saw it as a problem. I saw it.
I think I saw it as a problem.
Yeah,
you didn't.
No.
I just saw it as weakness and something that was just making me unstable.
Basically, I saw it as the power of every major volcano in the universe getting ready to line up and make everything happen for you.
Well, it was happening. Well, it's not happening when I wanted it to happen. Well, and in the direction I needed it to happen.
That's exactly it.
A lot of crying and screaming and good God knows. Well, every woman can relate.
Yeah.
And then we were sitting on sand, just let's do it. It's enough. Let's do it. And then we worked so intense and so hard over the next 9 months, and it's been an incredible journey, and I think that has been a really eye-opening. So now to acknowledge your emotions are so important.
Yes.
And I think that's why we're going to have a very interesting conversation, because we're talking of constant and never-ending process.
Yes.
And although you started 46 years ago and you've done it all, you're still progressing and making a difference, and still making yourself different.
Yes.
Becoming more and more total.
Exactly.
And I think that's the hard thing, because you kind of go like, oh, I know this now. It's done. And then after a while, you realize, no.
Next layer.
Yeah,
okay. Exactly.
Let's do it.
It was interesting because I remember I talked to your dad before the first European Championship that you participated in. And he's like, so do you think my daughter can do this? And I said, listen, she is so good. She is so strong. When I look at her, I see a medal. I see a medal in the European Championship. Yeah, but she's only been training under you for three months. And I said, you don't understand. Physically, she's probably the fittest person on the mat, on any of those mats. Mentally, she's completely driven, and she believes we can do this. And you walked away with a bronze medal. The people listening, if you don't do jiu-jitsu, you don't know how amazingly fantastic that is. It's more fantastic than it sounds. And I knew as soon as I put my hands on you the first time we started to roll. I remember, I think I'd taken your back and you stood up with me.
Oh,
you're like
I didn't know what to
58 kilos and I'm 100 kilos. I'm a giant man. I'm like I'm super heavyweight, and you're just this super beef, tiny little jacked lady who just I tricked you and I got behind you, got your back, and I was going to choke you, and you just stood up, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I regretted that instantly. Yeah. But I think that was one of them. That Europeans, I went in with no expectation and just worked.
Yeah.
And then all of the mental processes and emotional process came later.
Well, that's it.
Because then you get all the pressure and all of that. And this is why we want to have this podcast, because this is the conversation we have.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be really interesting, at least for us. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk anyways, but and we're going to have some of our friends in here, and we have a very special peer group.
Yes, exactly.
With Eirik, and this is my husband, and C, which is your wife, and we have a good friend called Rutger Kasters.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to be here a lot because we talk a lot, and we all have different perspective, and we are in different phases of our life.
Yeah.
But we always have very high conversations.
Yes, very, very interesting conversations, and seeing things from different points of view. And I guarantee you will be richer, you will be happier, and you'll be more successful in your life if you listen and take these points into your heart and work with them, because these processes are the processes that I've also used on myself in order to get all the things I've done. I've made all the money, and I've done all of the sports events. I've been a world champion in jiu-jitsu, and I've done everything I wanted to in chiropractic, and I've been at high levels in volleyball and basketball, and I've competed in chess, and I've also been on one of the best gaming squads in Europe. I've really tried these methods out in different situations and realized that mastering myself is something that I really can use everywhere and would love to share with all the people listening to the podcast. And and your drive and your perspective, Marit, and your ability to constantly improve and bring your perspective and your process out is so important in that, because not everybody can relate to a old gray bearded gorilla. They need to hear this from somebody who's doing it and really doing the work. And that's something that you do. You constantly do the work.
I'm trying to, at least.
Amazing.
And that's why we, with this podcast, we also have created a company called The Integrated Human. And you can find us on YouTube, and you can find us at integrated-human.com, and on social media, Facebook and Instagram. And we will be sharing workshop here. We'll be sharing webinars on different themes, because our goal is to give people some guidance and some tools to use in their everyday life, because life is happening all the time and we're getting overwhelmed. But everyone has the power to align themselves to be a little bit clearer, to make their life a little bit better.
That's it.
And you can take it as far as you want.
Yeah, that's it.
But I think if you can take away some of the suffering you have, your life will be much, much better and much richer and more total.
Exactly.
You're going to enjoy the highest more, and you're going to accept the sorrow and the suffering that you're going to happen anyways. You can't have a life without suffering.
Yeah.
That's life in itself.
Suffering is the reason we progress. Right?
So I think I really want to help people have perspective, so they can think for themselves, and they can look at things a little bit different, and they can accept the suffering.
Yeah.
And let it happen, and understand it's a part of what it is, and it doesn't have to be more than that.
Yeah, exactly. It's well said. It's very well said. So I think this was a very good start on the first podcast. And I want to thank you so much, Marit, for saddling up and being here with me.
Let's do this.
Yes, let's do it. And I'd like to sign off with something that I feel is quite important, because understanding that you are a field of potential and that you are special. You are not just flesh and blood, but you're spirit and you are energy. So I'd like to sign off with, remember your matter. Unless you multiply yourself by the speed of light squared, and then your energy. But if you can't be energy, my friend, matter.